The power just went out. The whole block went black at once. That means it's not your house, it's the grid, and the grid doesn't come back fast. Your phone is at 9% and falling, and the machine that can keep your family warm and fed tonight is already sitting in your driveway with a full tank of fuel. You've walked past it 10,000 times and never once knew what it could do. That car, that truck, that old SUV, it is a generator. It always was. Let me say that flat, because it's the boldest thing I'll tell you tonight, and I want you to take it as a conclusion, not a maybe. The vehicle outside your front door can run your refrigerator, your freezer, your lights, your phones, your furnace fan, even your well pump, for days, on the fuel that's already in the tank right now. You do not need to go spend $800, $2,000 on a generator that sits in a box in the garage, rusting until the one weekend you finally need it and the pull cord snaps in your hand. Where I learned this, we didn't get to assume the power would be there. We planned every mission around the idea that it wouldn't be. And the first thing they teach you about power in the field is this: you already have more of it than you think. You just have to know how to get it out. Before this is over, I'm going to hand you the exact setup. The same principle we used to keep comms and cold storage running off a parked vehicle when there was no grid for 200 miles. It's simple. It's cheap. It works on the house you're sitting in tonight, not some future house, the one you own right now. And when you see how simple it is, you're going to be a little angry that nobody ever told you. Here's the thing nobody wants to sit with. A blackout isn't really about the dark. The dark you can handle. You light a candle, put on a jacket, tell the kids it's an adventure. For about 3 hours. It's hour 12 that breaks people. It's the freezer. You open it, and the cold doesn't roll out the way it should. There's $400 or $500 of meat in there. The bulk beef you bought to save money. The garden vegetables somebody in your house spent 2 August weekends putting up. And it's all creeping 1 degree an hour toward the line where it turns into garbage you have to bag up and haul to the curb. Then it's the refrigerator, the insulin, if somebody in your house needs it, the baby's milk. Then it's the furnace. And this one gets people every time. Most furnaces in this country burn gas or oil for the heat. But the blower that pushes that warm air through your house, that runs on electricity. So the fuel is there, the heat is there, and it just sits in the basement doing nothing because one little fan can't spin. Your house goes cold while a working furnace sits right under your feet. And if you're on a well, no power means no pump, and no pump means no water. Not for drinking, not for the toilet, not for anything. Now picture the neighbor who planned ahead. He drove to the hardware store last spring, spent good money, $800, maybe $2,000. That generator sat in the garage all year. Storm finally comes, he yanks the cord, and the carburetor's gummed shut because the fuel's been sitting in it varnishing for 11 months. Or he gets it running and realizes he's got 2 gallons of gas in a can, and the station down the road has no power to run its pumps either. He bought peace of mind, and on the one night he needed it, it let him down. And the whole time, that entire cold, frightened night, there was a machine in his driveway with a 15-gallon tank, an engine built to run 200,000 miles, and an electrical system already designed to make power. It sat there useless because nobody taught him the one thing we never had the luxury of forgetting. So let me teach you. It's almost too easy. Your car makes electricity. It has to. Every time you drive, something runs your headlights, your radio, your heater fan, charges your phone, and keeps that battery topped off. That something is called the alternator. It's a small generator bolted to the front of your engine, and it has been spinning and making power every single minute you've ever driven that vehicle. In the field, we thought about power the way you have to when there's no wall socket for 100 miles. Electricity isn't something that comes from far away through a wire. It's something you make and something you store. A battery is just a bucket. Something fills the bucket, you drink from the bucket. Your car is both. The battery is the bucket. The alternator is the thing that fills it. So the whole trick, the entire secret, is learning how to drink from that bucket without driving anywhere. And the tool that lets you do it costs less than 1.5 tanks of fuel. It's called a power inverter. Now stay with me, because this is the piece most people get wrong. And getting it wrong is the difference between running your house and melting a cable in your hand. Your car battery puts out 12 volts of what's called direct current, DC. The power in your wall sockets is 120 volts of a different kind, alternating current, AC. Your fridge, your lamps, your furnace fan all expect the wall kind. The inverter is the little box that takes the 12 volts from the car and turns it into the 120 your appliances want. And here's the part that'll surprise you. A good one. strong enough to run a refrigerator, is not some rare, expensive thing. A 2,000-watt pure sine wave inverter runs about $150 to $250. Compare that to $800 for a generator that needs its own fuel and its own babysitting. You buy the inverter once. You already own the engine. You already own the fuel tank. You already own the thing that makes the power. You're not buying a generator. You're buying the one missing piece that connects to the generator you've owned this whole time. Now I know exactly what you're thinking because every person I've ever explained this to thinks it first. That little cigarette lighter socket in my dash can barely charge my phone. There's no way it runs a fridge. You're right, and that's the first mistake, so let me save you from it. That lighter socket is protected by a tiny fuse, 10 or 15 amps. It'll pass maybe 150 watts before it gives up. Your refrigerator needs more than that just to wake up. Plug a real inverter into that socket and you'll blow the fuse in about 4 seconds and decide the whole idea is foolishness. You don't use the lighter socket. You go straight to the source. You connect the inverter directly to the 2 battery terminals under the hood, the same posts the jumper cables clamp to, red to positive, black to negative. And this is the one thing the cheap videos skip. Put an inline fuse on that positive cable right at the battery. A short between the battery and the inverter without a fuse is how you start a fire under your hood. Fuse it. That's field discipline. You protect the connection first, always. Now, you're not sipping through a straw. You're drinking straight from the bucket, and the inverter can pull everything it needs. Keep the cable short and thick. Thin wire on a long run is where power leaks out as heat. The old rule, after an hour of running, put your hand flat on the cable. If it's warm, it's too thin. If it's cool, you did it right. Run a heavy-duty extension cord from the inverter through a cracked window. Start the engine. Let it idle. That's the whole machine. Now let me tell you honestly what an idling engine can carry, because this is where people either light up or get scared off, and I don't want you scared off by bad numbers. At a plain idle, ticking over in the driveway, most vehicles give you somewhere around 400 to 700 usable watts, steady, all day, without touching the pedal. Hold it at a fast idle, and a lot of vehicles will push past 1,000. Diesels and bigger trucks do better. Small 4-cylinders do a little less. Know your own vehicle before the storm, not during it. What does 500 to 700 watts run? A refrigerator draws about 150 watts while it's humming. A chest freezer, about the same. A handful of LED lights is almost nothing. Call it 40 watts for the whole house. Charging every phone and tablet you own is almost nothing. A modern furnace blower is somewhere between 300 and 600 watts. You won't run all of it at once. You rotate. Fridge, freezer, lights, and a furnace cycle, one idling engine, on somewhere between a half-gallon and a gallon of fuel an hour. Now here's the catch the cheap videos never tell you, the startup surge. When a fridge compressor or a furnace fan first kicks on, it grabs a huge gulp of power for about 1 second, 3-4 times what it uses to run. A fridge that hums at 150 watts might yank 1,200 for that instant. That's why you buy the 2,000-watt inverter even though you'll rarely use 2,000 watts. The big number isn't for the running, it's for the surge. You don't size for the calm, you size for the spike. Anybody who's ever tried to start a big motor off a small supply learns that lesson exactly once. So that's the picture. Engine idling, fused inverter on the battery, heavy cord into the house, fridge cold, furnace warm, phones charged. But here's where I have to stop and ask you the real question, because none of what I just told you is new. The alternator is 100 years old. The inverter is older than color TV. This isn't secret physics, so why did nobody ever sit you down and tell you that the most reliable backup generator in America is the second vehicle in your own driveway? I'll tell you what I learned watching how it works on the inside. The people who sell you power and the people who sell you the backup to power do not profit when you run your house off your own truck for 3 days. The generator company does not make a dime when you find out you never needed their $800 machine. There's a whole industry built on you feeling helpless the second the lights flicker. They sell you the fear, and then they sell you the cure for the fear. I'm not telling you the grid is evil. I'm telling you that nobody downstream of your electric bill has a single reason to teach you how to live without it for a weekend. So they didn't. It wasn't a conspiracy in a back room. It was just everybody's incentive lining up quietly against you knowing one simple thing. Out in the field, you don't get to be that dependent. You can't be, so you learn the old way. You make power, you store it, you sip it slow, and you carry that knowledge back home with you. That's the only reason I can tell you this, and your neighbor can't. Now, maybe you're sitting there thinking, this is fine for somebody with a newer house and a fancy panel. My place is 40 years old. I rent. I'm not touching my breaker box. Good. Don't. Here's the version you can do this weekend with no electrician, no permit, no changes to your house at all. You do not wire the inverter into your electrical panel. You do not backfeed your breaker box that pushes power backward onto the utility line and can kill the lineman working to restore your street, and it can burn your house down when the grid snaps back on. That's the one hard rule. Never backfeed the panel. You skip the whole house entirely and you run extension cords, a heavy outdoor extension cord, the thick orange kind, 12 gauge if you can get it. Run it from the inverter in the driveway, in through a window, straight into the back of your refrigerator. Run another to the freezer. Put a power strip on the end for your phones and a couple of lamps. You're not powering the house. You're powering the 4 or 5 things that actually matter, one cord at a time. A renter can do this. A 90-year-old farmhouse can do this. An apartment with a parking spot can do this. And the furnace, this one feels like magic the first time. A lot of furnaces, especially newer ones, aren't hardwired at all. They're plugged into a regular outlet tucked behind the unit. If yours is, you unplug the furnace from the wall and plug it into the cord from your truck. Now your gas furnace runs off your vehicle and pushes warm air through the whole house. If yours is hardwired, that's a job for an electrician on a calm, sunny day to add a plug. Not something to figure out with a flashlight in your teeth during the storm. So go look, this week. Pull the fridge out a few inches and find the plug. Check behind the furnace for a cord. Know the answer before you need it. Now here's the real trick. The thing that turns this from a loud, gas-guzzling, run-the-engine-all-night chore into something quiet and slow and almost free. You do not run the engine continuously. You run it in cycles. And to make that work, you add one thing. A second battery. A deep cycle battery, the marine or RV kind. About $100–150 at the farm store. Here's why it changes everything. A fridge and a freezer don't need power all the time. They're insulated boxes. The compressor only runs maybe a third of the hour to hold temperature. The rest of the time, they're just coasting. So running your engine 60 minutes an hour to feed appliances that only work 20 is enormous waste. You're burning a gallon of fuel to do 15 cents of work. So you make the bucket bigger, fill it fast, and let it pour out slow. You set the deep cycle battery inside. You run the inverter off that battery, not off the car. Your fridge, freezer, and lights run off the battery silently all evening and all night. No engine, no fumes, nothing running outside your bedroom window. Then twice a day you start the car, run a heavy cable from the car battery to the house battery, and let the alternator pour power back into the deep cycle at full output. About an hour of running refills the bucket. Then you shut the car off and go back to running silent for another 10 or 12 hours. You run the engine maybe 2 hours a day instead of 24. You burn 1.5 gallons in a whole day instead of 15. That 15-gallon tank in your driveway suddenly lasts a week or more. And your nights are silent, warm, with no carbon monoxide worry and no neighbors complaining about the noise. The engine fills the bucket fast, the battery holds it, the house drinks it slow. That's the whole system. And it's the exact same discipline we ran in the field, where fuel was precious and a running engine was a target. You never ran the generator a minute longer than you had to. You charged the bank hard, shut it down, and lived off the stored power. You've just rebuilt that same system in your driveway out of a vehicle you already owned, and one battery from the farm store. Let me tie off the loose ends, because a man should never hand you half a tool. Will idling your car a couple hours a day hurt it? No. People sit in drive-through lines and traffic jams longer than that. Watch your temperature gauge. Make sure it's not creeping up while sitting still. And you're fine. Where do you run it? Outside. Always outside. Never in a closed or attached garage, even with the door open. Never with the exhaust near the window your cord runs through. Carbon monoxide is the one thing here that can actually kill you, and it's silent and has no smell. Engine in the open driveway, exhaust blowing away from the house, cord going in a window on the other side. Put a CO alarm inside, near where people sleep. Respect the exhaust, and this setup is safe. Ignore it, and it's the only part that isn't. Why pure sin wave and not the cheap inverter? Because some sensitive things, certain furnace control boards, some newer fridges, any medical equipment, don't like the rough, choppy power a cheap modified inverter puts out. Pure pure sine wave makes clean power, the same smooth kind as the wall, and runs anything without complaint. The cheap tool that ruins the expensive machine was never cheap. Why a deep cycle battery instead of a spare car battery for storage? Because a regular starting battery hates being drained deep. It's built to give one big burst and get refilled right away. Drain it low a few times and it's dead. A deep cycle is built for exactly this. Drawn down slow and deep, refilled over and over for years. Right bucket for the job. That's the complete picture. The vehicle you already own. A pure sine wave inverter, about $150 to $250. A deep cycle battery, about $100. A fused heavy cable to the terminals. A thick cord into the house. The fridge, the freezer, the furnace fan, the lights, the water. Run the engine 2 hours a day to fill the bucket. Run silent off the battery the rest of the time. For about $250 one time, you have a power system that lasts as long as you can find fuel, one you understand completely, that you can fix with your own 2 hands, and that was parked 20 feet from your front door the entire time. Think about every dollar quietly pulled out of your pocket on the assumption that you'd never figure this out. The $800 generators, the $5,000 standby units, the fear every time the wind picks up that your family is one fallen branch away from a cold, dark house. They sold you the fear and then they sold you the cure. And the real answer was sitting in your driveway with a full tank of gas. You were never helpless. You were just never told. So here's what I want you to do, and I'm asking straight, because folks watching these never speak up unless somebody tells them to. Tomorrow in daylight, walk out to your driveway and pop the hood. Find the 2 battery terminals, the ones the jumper cables clamp to. Then come back and tell me in the comments, did you already know your car was a generator, or did nobody ever teach you either? I read them. I want to know how many of you were kept in the dark. And if any part of this handed you back something that felt like it had been taken, stay with us and subscribe, because next time I'm going to show you the other half. How you keep a whole house warm through a hard winter with no furnace and no power bill at all, using a heat trick the old field manuals knew and the modern builders forgot. It's sitting right there in the walls of the house you already own. You've walked past it 100 times, just like the generator in your driveway.